Hello everyone and welcome to my review show here. It's a brand new style show. This time we're going to review different pay-per-views from the history of pro wrestling. Today I'm going to do a few pay-per-views, but this particular episode will be about WWF King of the Ring 1993. And WWF was kind of dipping in their buy rates for pay-per-views at the end of 92, start of 93. It kind of it was a bit of a lean period, and they decided they would need another pay-per-view maybe to bring up their income. And Vince McMahon, the genius that he is, of course, and was, he of course made that decision to bring in another pay-per-view and bring it up to 5 in the year. Of course, the big four was from 87 onwards. The big four was Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, of course SummerSlam and Survivor Series. And maybe deciding they were on this new generation idea of their big gimmick around this period was bringing in the new talent and calling it the WWF's new generation. And rolling into WrestleMania 9, of course, in Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada. There was a lot of feuds that had progressed from WrestleMania 9 and into King of the Ring 93. King of the Ring 93 was, of course, going into it, you can understand their logic. Their storyline at the time was, of course, Hulk Hogan had just come back. Another reason probably why they brought Hogan back was the buy rates reason, because Hogan was in Hollywood making a lot of movies, didn't work out too well for him at the time. He had a lot of B movies and decided to go back into wrestling and didn't go with Turner at this stage. Ted Turner could have bought him up for WCW at this stage, but he decided McMahon, who of course he was on trial with against the federal government, and of course Hogan testified against McMahon. And that was a whole big scandal at the time. But he came back for the WrestleMania 9, teamed up with his buddy Brutus the Barber Beefcake to fight Money Incorporated, Ted DiBiase, and the IRS, Mike Rotunda. And that was a good match. Everybody thought this was it. They didn't win the tag belts. They won in disqualification. And then, at the end of the night, the big sumo wrestler, of course, Yokozuna, the man from the Orient, from the land of the rising sun, Tokyo, Japan. He came into the WWF then, and he, of course, came in mid to late 92, about September 92, and you could tell that it was a progression of his character. He went on to win the Royal Rumble, and then in WrestleMania 9 beat Bret Hart for the title. But at the end of WrestleMania 9, then Hulk Hogan came out and the whole storyline was that Hogan would then be challenged by Mr. Fuji, the manager of Yokozuna, and there would be a quick match at the end of WrestleMania 9, an unsanctioned match that would last about, I think it was something like 10 seconds, and Hogan won his 5th WWF Championship. I always thought it was a bit... there's a lot of controversy over this because McMahon brought him in when there was a lean period, and he had Bret Hart as the world champion up until this, and Hart was of course champion since he beat Ric Flair in the previous October at a dark house show in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in Canada, which wasn't even televised, but it's now thankfully on videotape and on DVD. and of course up on YouTube, and I've seen it a few times. Very good match. But going back to this, he went on then, had title defences nearly every week, whereas when Hogan was the champion back in the late 80s, early 90s, and of course mid to late 80s, early 90s, Hogan of course only defended his title at the big pay-per-views mostly. Sometimes, a very odd time, he would defend it on Saturday night's Main Event, but he defended it in all the big pay-per-views. So there was a kind of a, maybe with Hart, they decided to use him in title matches because of the buy rates being down. But then again, that was just on weekly shows, so they weren't making much on that. But maybe they decided to use Hart as a, because maybe they decided to give him, or to put him in title matches because he wasn't a big enough star. And if it was Hogan was the champion, they wouldn't waste their title matches on the weekly shows. So there's a lot of food for thought there as far as why they decided to do this. But Hart, of course, Bret Hart resented this decision from WWF, and in later years, his resentment of a few things got the better of him, and the whole big row over the Montreal screw job started, and that was a whole big thing altogether. But we'll talk about that in a later episode. But at the moment, we're talking about King of the Ring 1993. I'll just give you a bit of an overview of it there. It took place in the heartland of America, Daytona, or it was Dayton, Ohio, and it was, of course, the first match on the card. This is the DVD of it. That's paired with King of the Ring 94 there, as you can see. Of course, the main event, Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna with the title on the line. And then this is the one we're concentrating on right now. The next episode will be on this one, but King of the Ring 93 is the one we're on at the minute. So I'll take you through the card now, and we'll talk about the actual elimination tournament. Before we start this, actually, I will fill you in on King of the Rings before this. It wasn't a pay-per-view before. It was either a one-night tournament or a series of matches that would lead to the crowning of the King of the Ring. I think the first one was back in 88. It was Harley Race, 1987 King of the Ring. King Harley Race, who of course was a living legend back from the NWA days, but he was brought in as Bobby Heenan's Heenan family member and became King of the Ring. Then Haku, another Heenan family guy, beat Harley Race in 1989 at the Royal Rumble to become the King of the 1988 at the Royal Rumble to become King of the Ring. And then after that, in mid-88, Hacksaw Jim Duggan beat Haku to be the King of the Ring. And then after that, the next King of the Ring was the Macho King, Randy Savage. And he, of course, became the Macho Man again in 91, but the King of the Ring was kind of not happening then after that. But then the original King, Jerry the King Lawler, came into the WWF in mid-92, and he kind of was the king of wrestling anyway, from his days in Memphis, Tennessee, and the USWA and the CWA, and of course his own organisation down there, Memphis Wrestling. And he would try and be in WWF, he'd be a bad guy. He was always a good guy in Memphis, but he came into the WWF with this egotistical, self-loathing king, or self-loving King of the Ring, as he called himself, the real King of the Ring. And that, you could see what WWF were doing. That became a secondary storyline now. Not the top draw storyline, but the secondary storyline. It became Jerry the King Lawler and the winner of the King of the Ring having a feud. But we'll not get to that just yet. First of all, we're going to fill you in on the first round matches of this particular tournament, King of the Ring 1993. It was, of course, Bret the Hitman Hart going one-on-one with the bad guy, Razor Ramon. They had a match at the 1993 Royal Rumble before this, and then they decided to have... then they were paired in the King of the Ring tournament, the first round, and the man that progressed from that one was Bret Hart, but it was a great match. Each match was 10 minutes. Each match was a 10-minute time limit. in the first round of this particular King of the Ring tournament in 1993. The next match then was Mr. Perfect versus Mr. Hughes. Of course, the big guy, Curtis Hughes. That one was pretty a brawl, basically. Perfect winning on DQ, disqualification. Hacksaw Jim Duggan then met Bam Bam Bigelow, who was, of course, who had just made his return in late '92, Bam Bam Bigelow, and he was making an impact as a bad guy. Of course, he was a heel at this stage. He was, of course, a babyface, which is the name for a good guy in the late 80s when he teamed with Hulk Hogan at the Survivor Series and stuff. But he made a return in late '92, and he was against Hacksaw Jim Duggan at the first round of this King of the Ring tournament, and Bam Bam progressed in that particular match. So a lot of good matches to start the King of the Ring. The fourth and final match of the first round of this particular one-night tournament was Tatanka, the Native American Indian character. His gimmick, of course, was a Lumbee Indian, and he went up against Lex Luger, who was, of course, his character was the Narcissist, which is, of course, a self-loving kind of bodybuilding style character. He, of course, them two went to a time limit draw, and that ended up being both of them being eliminated from the tournament. Up next then was the World Heavyweight title match, the WWF Championship match, as Hulk Hogan put his fifth world title on the line against Yokozuna. The Oriental star, the big sumo from Japan, would basically annihilate Hulk Hogan in this match. It was nobody thought it would happen. Of course, everybody expected the Hulkster to progress and become the world and stay the world champion at this time. But Yokozuna had different ideas, and he, because of a controversial moment at the end of the match, I'm not sure if this was meant to happen or not. I never actually read into this part of it, but if it was in the storyline or not, I'm not 100% sure, but it probably was. Hogan, the cameraman came up on the apron, and a fireball came out of the camera and hit Hogan in the face, and Yokozuna then got the bonsai drop and all that and won the match. And that was Yokozuna's. The storyline was set in place then for Yokozuna to become the next big thing in the WWF, which did happen for a period of time, but he never had the reign that Hogan had. Next then on the card for the strangest thing is they had the main event straight after the first round, so you could see there that they were trying to make the winner of the King of the Ring be a massive deal, because of course the pay-per-view was the King of the Ring. So you could see the logic behind their storyline and their creativeness there as far as the WWF are concerned. Next up was the Intercontinental Championship match, which proved to be actually a very entertaining match. It was Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, who had just broken off, a year earlier, had broken off from his long, very successful tag team partner, Marty Jannetty. They were, of course, the Rockers back in the late 80s and early 90s. And Shawn Michaels had broken off from the tag team ranks and decided he was going to try and make it as a solo star in the world of wrestling. And he went up against a one-on-one with Crush, who of course also broke off from the tag team ranks in 1991, as he was the tag team partner with Axe and Smash in Demolition. But he kept his name Crush, and he was, of course, a Hawaiian. His gimmick was he was from Hawaii, and he was this colourful character, but very big and strong, powerful person, and someone that McMahon would love to push up the ranks.